The Cybrarian Presents, a serialization of Robert E. Howard's Conan, the Phoenix on the Sword. Disclaimer: the following is intended for a mature audience and may contain references to violence, sex, and language that may offend. Chapter 3. Under the cavern pyramids, great Set coils asleep. Among the shadows of the tombs, his dusky people creep. I speak the word from hidden gulfs that never knew the sun. Send me a servant for my hate, O scaled and shining one. The sun was setting, etching the green and hazy blue of the forest in brief gold. The waning beams glinted on the thick golden chain which Dion of Attalus twisted continually in his pudgy hand as he sat in the flaming riot of blossoms and flower trees which was his garden. He shifted his fat body on his marble seat and glanced furtively about, as if in quest for a lurking enemy. He sat within a circular grove of slender trees, whose interlapping branches cast a thick shade over him. Near at hand a fountain tinkled silverly, and other unseen fountains in various parts of the great garden whispered an everlasting symphony. Dion was alone except for the great dusky figure which lounged on a marble bench close at hand, watching the Baron with deep, sombre eyes. Dion gave little thought to Thom. He vaguely knew that he was a slave in whom Ascalante reposed much trust, but like so many rich men, Dion paid scant heed to men below his own station in life. "You need not be so nervous," said Thoth. "The plot cannot fail." "Ascalante can make mistakes as well as another," snapped Dion, sweating at the mere thought of failure. "Not he," grinned the Stygian savagely. "Else I had not been his slave, but his master." "What talk is this?" peevishly returned Dion, with only half a mind on the conversation. Thothamon's eyes narrowed. For all his iron self-control, he was near bursting with long pent-up shame, hate, and rage, ready to take any sort of desperate chance. What he did not reckon on was the fact that Dion saw him, not as a human being with a brain and a wit, but simply a slave, and as such, a creature beneath notice. "Listen to me," said Thoth. "You will be king, but you little know the mind of Ascalante. You cannot trust him. Once Conan is slain, I can help you. If you will protect me when you come to power, I will aid you. Listen, my lord. I was a great sorcerer in the south. Men spoke of Thothamon as they spoke of Ramon. King Tesphon of Stygia gave me great honor, casting down the magicians from the high places to exalt me above them. They hated me, but they feared me, for I controlled beings from outside which came at my call and did my bidding. By Set, mine enemies knew not the hour when they might awake at midnight to feel the taloned fingers of a nameless horror at his throat. I did dark and terrible magics with the serpent ring of Set, which I found in a nighted tomb a league beneath the earth, forgotten before the first man crawled out of the slimy sea. But a thief stole the ring and my power was broken. The magicians rose up to slay me and I fled. Disguised as a camel driver, I was traveling in a caravan in the land of Koth when Ascalante's reavers fell upon us. All in the caravan were slain except myself. I saved my life by revealing my identity to Ascalante and swearing to serve him. Bitter has been that bondage. To hold me fast, he wrote of me in a manuscript and sealed it and gave it into the hands of a hermit who dwells in the southern borders of Koth. I dare not strike a dagger into him while he sleeps, or betray him to his enemies, for then the hermit would open the manuscript and read. Thus Ascalante instructed him, and he would speak a word in Stygia. Again Thoth shuddered as an ashen hue tinged his dusky skin. "Men knew me not in Aquilonia," he said, "but should mine enemies in Stygia learn my whereabouts, not the width of half a world between us would suffice to save me from such a doom as would blast the soul of a bronze statue. Only a king with castles and hosts of swordsmen could protect me. So I have told you my secret, and urge that you make a pact with me. I can aid you with my wisdom, and you can protect me, and someday I will find the ring. Ring! Thoth had underestimated the man's utter egoism. Dion had not even been listening to the slave's words, so completely engrossed was he in his own thoughts, but the final words stirred a ripple in his self-centeredness. Ring, he replied. That makes me remember. My ring of good fortune. I had it from a Shemitish thief who swore he stole it from a wizard far to the south and that it would bring me luck. I paid him enough, Mitra knows. By the gods, I need all the luck I can have. What with Volmana and Ascalante dragging me into their bloody plots, I'll see to the ring. Thoth sprang up, blood mounting darkly in his face while his eyes flamed with the stunned fury of a man who suddenly realizes the full depths of a fool's swinish stupidity. Dion never heeded him. Lifting his secret lid in the marble seat, he fumbled for a moment amongst a heap of gewgaws of various kinds, barbaric charms, bits of bones, pieces of tawdry jewellery, luck pieces and conjures which a man's superstitious nature prompted him to collect. Ah, here it is. He triumphantly lifted the ring of curious make. It was of metal like copper, and was made in the form of a scaled serpent, coiled in 3 loops with its tail in its mouth. Its eyes were yellow gems which glittered balefully. Thom cried out as if he'd been struck, and Dion wheeled and gaped, his face suddenly bloodless. The slave's eyes were blazing, his mouth wide, his huge, dusky hands outstretched like talons. The ring, by Set, the ring, he screeched. My ring stolen from me. Steel glittered in the Stygian's hands, and with a heave of his great dusky shoulders, he drove the dagger into the Baron's fat body. Dion's high, thin squeal broke in a strangled gurgle, and his whole flabby frame collapsed like melted butter. A fool to the end, he died in mad terror, not knowing why. Flinging aside the crumpled corpse, already forgetful of it, Thoth grasped the ring in both hands. His dark eyes blazed with a fearful avidness. My ring, he whispered in terrible exultation. My power. How long he crouched over the baleful thing, motionless as a statue, drinking the evil aura of it into his dark soul, not even the Stygian knew. When he shook himself from his reverie and drew back his mind from the nighted abyss where it had been questing, the moon was rising, casting long shadows across the smooth marble back of the garden seat, at the foot of which sprawled the darker shadow which had been the Lord of Attalus. No more, Ascalante, no more, whispered the Stygian, and his eyes burned red as a vampire's in the gloom. Stooping, he cupped a handful of congealed blood from the sluggish pool in which his victim sprawled, and rubbed it in the copper serpent's eyes until the yellow sparks were covered by a crimson mask. Blind your eyes, mystic serpent, he chanted in a blood-freezing whisper. Blind your eyes to the moonlight and open them on darker gulfs. What do you see, O serpent of Set? Whom do you call from the gulfs of night, whose shadow falls in the waning light? Call him to me, O serpent of Set. Stroking the scales with a peculiar circular motion of his fingers, a motion which always carried the fingers back to their starting place, his voice sank still lower as he whispered dark names and grisly incantations, forgotten the world over save in the grim hinterlands of dark Stygia, where monstrous shapes move in the dusk of the tombs. There was a movement in the air about him, such a swirl as is made in water when some creature rises to the surface. A nameless, freezing wind blew on him briefly, as if from an open door. Thoth felt a presence at his back, but he did not look about. He kept his eyes fixed on the moonlit space of marble, on which a tenuous shadow hovered. As he continued his whispered incantations, the shadow grew in size and clarity until it stood out distinct and horrific. Its outline was not unlike that of a gigantic baboon, but no such baboon ever walked the earth, not even in Stygia. Still, Thoth did not look, but drawing from his girdle a sandal of his master, always carried in the dim hope that he might be able to put it to use, he cast it behind him. Know it well, slave of the ring, he exclaimed. Find him who wore it and destroy him. Look into his eyes and blast his soul before you tear out his throat. Kill him, aye, in a blind burst of passion, and all with him. Etched on the moonlight wall, Thoth saw the horror lower its misshapen head and take the scent like some hideous hound. Then the grizzled head was thrown back and the thing wheeled and was gone like a wind through the trees. The Stygian flung up his arms in maddened exultation, and his teeth and eyes gleamed in the moonlight. A soldier on guard without the walls yelled in startled horror as a great loping black shadow with flaming eyes cleared the wall and swept by him with a swirling rush of wind. But it was gone so swiftly that the bewildered warrior was left wondering whether it be a dream or a hallucination. Chapter 4. When the world was young and men were weak, and the fiends of the night walked free, I strove with set by fire and steel, and the juice of the upas tree. Now that I sleep in the mount's black heart, and the ages take their toll, forget ye him who fought with the snake to save the human soul. Alone in the great sleeping chamber with its high gold dome, King Conan slumbered and dreamed. Through the swirling grey mists he heard a curious call, faint and far, and though he did not understand it, it seemed not within his power to ignore it. Sword in hand he went through the grey mists as a man might walk through clouds, and the voice grew more distinct as he proceeded until he understood the word it spoke. It was his own name that was being called across the gulfs of space and time. Now the mist grew lighter and he saw that he was in a great dark corridor that seemed to be cut into solid black stone. It was unlighted, but by some magic he could see plainly. The floor, ceiling and walls were highly polished and gleaming dull, and they were carved with the figures of ancient heroes and half-forgotten gods. He shuddered to see the vast shadowy outlines of the nameless old ones, and he knew somehow that mortal feet had not traversed the corridor for centuries. He came upon a wide stair carved in the solid rock, and the sides of the shaft were adorned with esoteric symbols so ancient and horrific that King Conan's skin crawled. The steps were carved in each with the abhorrent figure of the old serpent, Set, so that each step he planted his heel in the head of the snake, as it was intended from old times. But he was none the less at ease for that now. But the voice called him on, and at last, in the darkness that would have been impenetrable to his material eyes, he came into a strange crypt and saw a vague, white-bearded figure sitting on a tomb. Conan's hair rose up and he grasped his sword, but the figure spoke in sepulchral tones. "Oh man, do you know me?" "Not I, by crum," swore the king. "Man," said the ancient figure, "I am Epimetheus." "But Epimetheus the sage has been dead for 1,500 years, stammered Conan. "Hearken," spoke the other commandingly. "As a pebble cast into the dark lake sends ripples to the further shores, happenings in the unseen world have broken like waves on my slumber. I have marked you well, Conan of Samaria. The stamp of mighty happenings and great deeds is upon you. But dooms are loose in the land, against which your sword cannot aid you." "You speak in riddles," said Conan uneasily. "Let me see my foe and I'll cleave his skull to his teeth." "Loose your barbarian fury against your foes of flesh and blood," answered the ancient. "It is not against men I must shield you. There are dark worlds barely guessed by man, where formless monsters stalk, fiends which may be drawn from the outer voids to take material shape and rend and devour all the bidding of evil magicians. There is a serpent in your house, O king, an adder in your kingdom, come up from Stygia, with the dark wisdom of the shadow in his murky soul. As a sleeping man dreams of the serpent which crawls near him, I have felt the foul presence of Set's neophyte. He is drunk with terrible power, and the blows he strikes at his enemies may well bring down the kingdom." I have called you to me to give you a weapon against him and his hellhound pack. But why? Bewilderedly asked Conan. And see you sleep in the black heart of Gulamira, whence you send forth your ghost on unseen wings to aid Aquilonia in times of need. But I am an outlander and a barbarian. Peace, the ghostly tones reverberated through the great shadowy cavern. Your destiny is one with Aquilonia. Gigantic happenings are forming in the web and the womb of fate, and a blood-mad sorcerer shall not stand in the path of imperial destiny. Ages ago, Set coiled about the world like a python about its prey. All my life, which was as the lives of 3 common men, I fought him. I drove him into the shadows of the mysterious south, but in dark Stygia, men still worship him, who to us is the archdemon. As I fought Set, I fight his worshippers and his votaries and his acolytes. Hold out your sword. Wondering, Conan did so, and on the great blade, close to the heavy silver guard, the ancient traced with a bony finger a strange symbol that glowed like white fire in the shadows. And on the instant crypt, tomb, and ancient vanished, and Conan, bewildered, sprang from his couch in the great golden domed chamber. As he stood, bewildered at all the strangeness of his dream, he realized that he was gripping his sword in his hand, and his hair prickled at the nape of his neck, for on the broad blade was carved a symbol, the outline of a phoenix. And he remembered that on the tomb and the crypt he had seen what he thought to be a similar figure carved of stone. Now he wondered if it had been but a stone figure, and his skin crawled at the strangeness of it all. Then as he stood, a stealthy sound in the corridor outside brought him to life, and without stopping to investigate, he began to don his armor. Again he was the barbarian, suspicious and alert as a grey wolf at bay. Thank you for listening to Robert E. Howard's Conan, the Phoenix on the Sword, presented by the Cybrarian, music by Solar Flare. For the continuation of these adventures, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.